So hello, croeso, welcome to this interview with singer-songwriter Jodie Marie as part of BBC Horizon's Tour of Wales. Jodie's been one of a number of artists to record a live session as part of Independent Venues Week, which looks to highlight the importance of grassroots music venues for the local community, economy and the creative arts. Jodie, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, good. Sticking, hanging in there.
Aren't we all at the moment?
Yeah.
What was it like to be in a live music venue again this week after so long?
It was so good. Yeah, it's quite amazing how much you take that for granted until it gets taken away from you. And the Queen's Hall is my kind of local haunt growing up. It was kind of went to many people I went to see there. Most weekends with my friends I'd go, and then playing it as well. I did my first album launch there, and yeah, it's just a huge part of my kind of upbringing in music, really. And just to go back there was, it was quite emotional, to be honest. I think we were all feeling quite teary.
Yeah, because it strikes me like, I guess like with every grassroots music venue, really, it's like sort of a hub of the community, really. Like, how important is Queen's Hall to Narberth, both as kind of you as a musician and the kind of wider community as well?
Yeah, and it's so important. You know, like I said, I've done so many things there, and even from, there's been pantomimes there. I remember going there as a kid for like a Christmas market and stuff like that, and they still do markets there, and it really is, it's the centre of Narberth. And I think for me, when I was doing gigs there, it meant a lot. I remember I did the first album launch there, and it was really busy, like packed. For me, that meant the world, because it meant all of the people I know and love and have grown up with have come to support me and support the venue that brings them all of this music and events as well. So it felt, even back then, it felt special, and even more so now because of everything they've been through COVID and everything. So it feels wonderful to be back in there, to be honest.
It's cool. So it's much more than a music venue then. It does lots of different stuff other than just music, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, its main thing is music, but it loads of lovely like local produce markets kind of thing, like makers. I have quite a few memories of going in there. For some reason, we'd always plan a gig, and we'd have to go in there and set up, and the PA would be set up and the lighting rig would be going in, and we'd turn up, me and my band, and it was always, I don't know how we timed it this every time, it was always when there was a market on. So we'd have to go into the back entrance and put all of our equipment on the stage behind the curtains, and the market was still going on, and we'd have to wait till they finished in order to set up for the gig. But there's something really beautiful about that, because it's so wholesome and so I don't know, it's just such a lovely atmosphere, and there's no stress around it. It's like it's all good, and you might even get a few extra people to your gig because you can go around and have a chat.
And obviously growing up there, you've already kind of spoken about memories a little bit, and I guess you must have a lot of memories, because did you say that like your first gig there was at the age of 6?
So yeah,
which is very young to be starting.
Yeah, my first, it wasn't my first there, but I kind of had a little slip. But my first gig was because I had a choir that used to let me do gigs, and I used to have classical singing lessons from the age of 6. So my first gig was around that age with this choir, and then after that, then there was a number of gigs, and some of them being at the Queen's Hall from about 6, 7, yeah. So I remember just being petrified. Probably singing some Welsh songs, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. So you've been very musical from a very young age. So has music always been a part of your life, and what kind of music were you listening to growing up?
Music's definitely been a huge part of my upbringing. My so talking of choirs, my Bampy, which is my mum's dad, he was in male voice choir, Call Maybe on Dear Cymru, and I've sung as a soloist with them and stuff as I was growing up. And having a male voice choir behind you and doing oohs when you're singing is the most thing I think I've ever had happen to me on stage. But so he's very musical. My dad plays bass in bands, and he plays guitar. So when I was little, I'd always hear him playing downstairs, when I should have been asleep and stuff. So I'd sneak down and listen to him, and eventually start singing along to all the old blues music we used to play. And yeah, Mum always had music on in the house. My sister was always blaring completely different music to the rest of us. And yeah, it's always part, all of us quite musical, whether that's playing instruments or listening. So I kind of listened to a lot of blues and like Elmore James, B.B. King growing up. That was my mum and my dad's kind of favourite music to listen to, and Albert King and people like that. And then I discovered Bonnie Raitt through a Stevie Ray Vaughan VHS.
Nice.
And I remember seeing this, I think Dad put it on, Stevie Ray Vaughan, it was called the VHS, I really remember it. And we were watching it, and I remember it was all these people playing Stevie Ray Vaughan songs, and one of them was Bonnie Raitt, and I think it was Pride and Joy she played. And yeah, it was. And I just remember, because I was quite young, I was like, there's a girl playing the guitar. And I thought it was this most amazing thing. She was playing slide, and I just thought she was so cool. So I was like, I want to do that.
And you have done, really, because
tried.
yeah, well, I think you do it really well, but you can definitely hear that blues influence in your music. But I feel like your music is so much more than that as well. Like, for anybody who doesn't know you or hasn't listened to you before, like, how would you describe your music to someone?
Definitely, like you say, it's got that blues edge, but it isn't blues music, I listened to a load of after kind of discovering Bonnie Raitt, people like that. I got really into, and still am, obsessed with the 60s and the 70s, and a lot of that music was what I grew up listening to, and a lot of soul music, so, and 50s as well, I guess. But so I was, I'd all I'd put on is people like Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Carole King, Dusty Springfield, Aretha Franklin, and all these like great, just incredible musicians and artists. And Free, I was obsessed with Free for a long time. And yeah, I just think there's such beauty in the recordings of those of that kind of era, and the kind of palette of the instruments that they used when they recorded. And I just, for me, if I was kind of to describe my music, I think it's got that, kind of take elements of those kind of music, and more soul, really.
Yeah.
But a bit more, it's got it's a bit, I try and keep the modern side as well, so it sounds current.
Yeah, I definitely think you blend lots of different genres together. And I was like listening to your Trouble in Mind album again last night, and just like it's really hard to kind of define, because like every track seems really different. There's a bit of jazz in there, and like every now and again you like throw a country ballad in or something, or you'd call it a real country ballad. So it was quite sort of, because sometimes you're kind of described as a country singer-songwriter, but I feel like there's so much more in there. And like how I guess it was kind of a question that I was trying to think to ask you, but I'm not quite sure how to ask it.
Go for it.
But just this kind of idea of kind of genre categorization, you know, the music industry seems to quite like putting people into a box and saying, well, they're country or they're blues or they're jazz. And I kind of feel like music's at quite an interesting kind of point, because those genres are kind of melding together and people are kind of not content to kind of sit in their box anymore. Is that kind of your experience? How do you feel about that? Take that question as you will.
It's interesting because I've had that, like you say, I've had that quite a lot with albums that, with my albums that I've released to date, obviously started from when I was young, really young, and released the first album when I was 18, around 18, yeah, around that time anyway. So I was quite young and got kind of discovered when I was 16 to get the deal with Decca. And even then, you know, there was, well, what music is it? And it's really hard to describe because it covers so many. I like to be fluid with my music. I'm not saying like I'm going to release like a rap track in the middle of a blues track or super pop shiny track. You know, I think it all makes sense because it's all rootsy music. That's what I kind of, and that might sound a bit pretentious, but I guess it's music that you're familiar with, that I have listened to growing up, and they all kind of make sense together in that kind of roots world. And it is hard, I think, when people try to pigeonhole you, and I get why people do it, because you're trying to say, if you're trying to show somebody some music and say, oh, have you checked out Jodie Marie? Oh no, what kind of stuff is it? And you know, you if you're going to like it or not, because if you say, oh, it's house, I'm not really a fan of house, but it might not be house, it might be a mixture of other stuff, you know. Of course I'm not house, but I think the thing with genres and putting people in boxes is, like you say, people are kind of pushing the boundaries with that now a bit more. Well, I think they always are, but it feels more so now. And all these genres had to come from somewhere. You know, you wouldn't have had pop or rock without having the blues or whatever before. So, or classical originally. So I think all of these genres that we have now are, this is my own little mind thinking, all these genres that we have now are different genres that have mixed together from previous times. So who knows, we might have a new genre for just like, you know, blues, soul, pop, whatever. And I think that's quite nice, just to blend across it all and kind of make your own stamp and sound.
You've got a new album on the way, February 12th it's out. Have I got that date right? Yeah.
Correct.
How would you, if you were selling your album, how would you sort of describe it, I guess? Is it kind of similar to what has gone before, or have you kind of changed direction a bit with sound? And
I think because it's been 5 years since my last record, I had a little bit of a break, and I guess it gave me time. And you know, in 5 years a lot happens, and I think, I'm not saying my influences have changed, I think they're quite solid really, but I think the album that I'm releasing now is kind of like a mixture of the first and second albums. So you have those kind of those ballad moments, but the kind of poppy soul stuff, like I Got You off the first album, I feel like I've tried to not recreate that at all, but kind of have that poppy soul blues sound as well. And I just love, like I said, that the influences that I listen to, I just think those sounds are amazing. And I really wanted to capture that on this record and kind of create my own sound, you know, like you hear like Sun Studios, you know that those tracks have come from Sun Studios. And I just kind of love the idea that it's like, oh, that's Jodie Marie's sound. So I've really tried to hone that on this record, but it's definitely soul pop, had to put it in a hole. And yeah, just listen to a lot of like Leslie Gore. So then, even though some songs are quite light and bright, the lyrical content might be a bit more maybe not as chirpy. So I've tried to kind of, by listening to people like Leslie Gore, where they take lyrics that are super sad, but it still sounds kind of, it doesn't sound like it's super melancholy, which I've tried to do on this album. It has its moments, but you know, it's good to keep a little bit of light sometimes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you, was it recorded and produced in lockdown?
Well, we did finish off in lockdown, so that was like the tail end of it in lockdown. But I recorded it in studios, which is a converted chapel in Pembrokeshire, that me and my partner Owain run, and that's kind of why one of the reasons why I took a bit of a break between the second album and this album, because we were renovating this chapel and just having a bit of a breather. And so we recorded the majority of the album. Actually, the majority of the album was in the old studio, which was Studios Mark 1, which was Owain's parents' farm. So that was a little converted barn, and we did most of the album there. We had Ed Harcourt, who's written a couple of tracks and produced a few tracks with me on this record. Dan Smith from the Noisettes, he produced one of the tracks that I'd written with him. And all the band come together. And then, yeah, we finished it off here then before lockdown, and then did the tail end in lockdown, then getting it finalized. So I was like, this has been in the making for so long, even though it still feels super fresh because we've kept working on it till very recently and revamped quite a few of the songs. But it was time. I was putting it off, I think, because I was scared. I still am, but I'm ready to let it go now.
Yeah, that's cool. It's quite interesting, like just hearing like you recording on a farm, and you're doing a recording studio in a converted chapel. I like watched a documentary on Rockfield over in Abergavenny, which is obviously a farm as well. It's quite sort of unique to Wales.
Yeah, well, with the old studios, so the farm, there was a little like outbuilding that Owain had done up over the years, and kind of collected all of this equipment, all the analog equipment, and you know, inspired by places like I said, Sun Studios and Muscle Shoals and places like that. And he's also obsessed with the 70s like me, so kind of went quite well. And we then, when it was time to move, we were looking for a place, and it was really hard to find, like, because he had his mindset on having a chapel or a church or something, just because the acoustics, they're made for singing in, they sound incredible, beautiful buildings. And it was really hard, and we spent a long time searching and kind of not getting anywhere. And then this place came up, and that's probably one of the best things that's happened to us, just being able to create this space in a place, in a county that we love. Everyone that kind of comes here to record, because it's an open studio, it's not just our studio. Everyone that comes down is just like, oh my God, you could be anywhere. It's amazing. It's really peaceful, and I'm really fortunate that I can go in there and, you know, write at 2 a.m. or whatever, when the bands have all gone to sleep.
That's cool. Is it a sort of residential studio then? Can artists kind of come and stay for a period and work on their music?
Yes. So there's a little cottage beside it. We ended up buying it at auction, super cheap, and the two buildings together, renovated the chapel, and the house was a bit of a mess as well when we bought it. And so we live in the little longhouse cottage next to the chapel, and we have at one end of the house, then we have a bunk room and another spare room, and then we're at the other end. So we kind of live with the bands that come in and do bed and breakfast and stuff for them, amongst doing a, you know, singer-songwriter career as well, which is always fun.
Obviously, I guess you haven't had or been able to have bands during lockdown for obvious reasons. I guess that's been one of the challenges of lockdown, I guess. Like, how has your lockdown experience been? What have been the challenges? Have you seen any kind of opportunities that have arisen as a musician?
I think, like everyone, you know, it's been difficult, and you know, financially, mentally, physically. Sometimes, you know, when they said you couldn't within an hour, and you just think it's a really tough time. And I'm not saying that musicians have had it any worse than anyone else at all, but it's been quite hard without being able to gig and everything. And I guess I've been fortunate that I can finish off the album, which I've done, but it's tough not being able to go out and do the thing you love, and try and make a living from it as well. So I'd say that's been really difficult for me, especially. And with the studio, it's been really quiet, and which has been quite nice, because I can go in there and write and record some new demos and stuff. But once you take that kind of away, it is hard. But I guess the thing that's really positive that people are doing, and it really kind of makes me feel, fills my heart with joy without being cheesy, but it really does, just how communities, like we mentioned about Queen's Hall earlier, how they have, everyone's come together, and I really love that. Like, you know, you've got all the streams that people have been doing from their home. My internet has only just been renewed, like it didn't work before Christmas, so this is a joy that this is happening right now. So I couldn't do any streams from home, and just, I don't know, just seeing everyone supporting each other, like, oh, I've got a gig tonight, and loads of people would join it, and you feel like you're going to watch a gig, kind of, and supporting your friends. And then things like everyone supporting their local shops in the community, like we would be from the local veg shop and support them, because they, you know, they really need it. And I think a lot of people did the same, and I think that's been truly beautiful. That's probably the thing that maybe hopefully will carry forward, that people keep supporting those small businesses, and maybe once we're allowed to go out to live gigs, they'll be, you know, bashing down the doors.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. We can say that.
I can imagine so.
Yeah. Be gutted if I'll be on a stage and no one. Which is like a live stream, so we'll be used to it by then.
True. Yeah, it was quite just with that idea of kind of like I suppose accessibility, really, because like you say, you've had a period without internet. Like I don't think that this would work on my computer like 12-18 months ago, because being in rural Wales, you're always kind of the last, or you almost feel like the last people to kind of get the latest technology. And like watching an advert the other day for 5G, and it's like sort of in rural Wales, we're still glad to have finally got 4G, to be honest. Yeah. I was sort of thinking about that, and sort of thinking about accessibility for musicians, because I guess it's been hard enough for, you know, sort of live gigs being cancelled, but sort of people have just kind of seen the live streams kind of take off, and sort of thought that that's a, you know, a sort of alternative. But actually for some people it hasn't been, and they've been hit kind of twice as hard in a way.
Yeah.
I just sort of wonder, like, what your thoughts are on that kind of accessibility, really, and has it highlighted something of kind of maybe wider inequalities, possibly? Yeah,
it does. Like with us, like I said, our internet was non-existent, really, and apparently we're at the end of the line, and they would do. So it was like, great. Especially now, you know, you of course, like gigs, live stream gigs and stuff like that, and feeling like you're connected to people, and you know, you want to talk to your family, you want to talk to your friends. It's completely as lovely as it is being here. You know, I just think of people that might be in cities on their own, and can't go outside their door for a walk, and you know, just be in the middle of nowhere. Excuse me. And I just think they both have it's both difficult in their own way, but down here, yeah, it's definitely as much as I love Pembrokeshire, I wouldn't or rural Wales, I wouldn't change it for the world. And there is beauty in not having those things, like bands come down and they're like, "Oh, you don't have a TV?" Like, no, you don't have internet. Like, what? Like before all this happened, and there was a beauty to that for people coming from the outside in. But when you're living here, you do need that kind of connection with people, and it does make it difficult. And I think it should be kind of looked at a bit more. Maybe, you know, we had to go to an outside source, which is lovely actually, to get our internet up and running, and to be able to have interviews like this. Otherwise, I'd probably be missing out on a lot of opportunities to have interviews with people or doing live streams and stuff. So it is important in the kind of times we're in.
Yeah. How did the opportunity with BBC Horizons come about to be part of this Independent Venue Week tour of Wales?
Well, Horizons are they're amazing anyway. I think they're doing something really important throughout Wales. Even before Independent Venue Week, you know, there's the Launchpad Fund to help musicians. I just think they're fantastic, and Bethan Elfyn has been a support with my music over the years, so I can't thank her enough. And Adam Lawton as well, you know, from BBC Radio Wales. They've just been fantastic, and to have that kind of close-knit community and in something like Horizons, I think is so important. So with Independent Venue Week, that kind of came about through Bethan and a lovely girl called Megan, and they'd asked me if I'd come along and play. So we went to the Queen's Hall in Narberth and performed 3 songs each, me and Rona Mack, who was actually a friend of mine already from St David's. A beautiful soul who is incredibly talented. I was like, she's going after me. Oh God, she's too good. But and it was such a lovely, it felt so, I haven't even got the words. It was just so lovely to be a part of it. And again, for something so important like Independent Venue Week, more so now than ever, you know, it's been going on before COVID, and it just seems to be even more relevant now.
Yeah, which I hope it will bring you some new fans, as well as pleasing old fans to be able to access some live material from you. If people want to go and check you out, follow you on social media, what are your how can they do that?
They'll find me. So it's Jodie Marie Music on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. And I have a website, which is jodiemarie.com. And on there, I do a blog about, just kind of similar to my Instagram. So I say what I've been up to, and also my stories there. So if people want to pre-order the album, I'm releasing it on vinyl and CD, which is really exciting. And, you know, keep up to date with what I'm doing. So I'm doing a Queen's Hall gig, actually, again, a live stream from the Queen's Hall on the 19th of February. So they can check out, like, keep an eye on what I'm up to on all those kind of platforms.
Brilliant, which I would really, really encourage people to go and do, because she's an amazing musician. Thank you so much for joining me, Jodie. Good luck with the album launch and the live stream. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to have a chat.